Welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. My name is Kay Cote, and I'm your host for today's episode. And today on the show, I have Andrew Abraham, co-founder of Hey Buddy, as my guest. We're going to be learning about his business, his journey to business ownership, best practices that he's learned, as well as challenges that he's faced to give you that inside look to what it's like to build and operate a business. Well, hey, Andrew, so great to see you. Thanks for being on the show today.
Howdy, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm absolutely elated to not only just connect with you, but everyone who's listening, and to the people that are listening, thank you. It's an honor to be here and to just be able to proliferate ideas that come from my conscious mind.
Yes, I like how you put that. That's a great, that is great. So yes, so before we get into all things business, I'd love to learn about you and share about you with our audience. So feel free, take us back and share a bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, many a times we hear entrepreneurs and their stories, and they have all sorts of twists and turns. And I, for one, am an individual that can really resonate with that. So, my entire life, I was no aspiring orthopedic surgeon. I thought like medicine and STEM is where I'd find myself. And, I actually studied biology at the University of North Texas, and spent some time in this journey when all of a sudden started like a renovation business, a barber business, and started to lead within a STEM focused program, a business organization, which is kind of what led me to going to the University of Texas at Austin and moving me from Dallas to Austin, where we fortunately met. In the past, what I've done prior to this current startup is help entrepreneurs raise VC funds. So I've worked both in private equity and VC, and kind of did the whole corporate thing for a while. And then that startup itch didn't go. And so currently I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hey Buddy. We'll probably get more into it, but a virtual shopkeeper for e-commerce brands. And so that's a little bit of my background. So UT alum, had all sorts of different startups, and now super excited to be a B2B SaaS tech founder.
Wow, that is super cool. I'm excited to dive into this because I once had an online storefront.
Oh,
I had a t-shirt company way back in the day, so we could have some good healthy conversations around that. So
got
yeah.
it.
Okay, so I love your background and like the things that the pivots you've made to bring you to where you are today. So I would love to dive into more about your Hey Buddy and the why behind that. So you got into SaaS. How did you get there and why did you choose that path?
Yeah, absolutely. So last South by Southwest, I was invited to be a venture capitalist panelist to speak at a networking event. And in the crowd was Dr. Beata Lerman, who's the CEO and founder of Sinless Streets Chocolate, which is a metabolically healthy chocolate company that uses, no artificial dye, color, or flavor. And again, no sugar. And so I realized, as I was talking to her, that this is something that's amazing. She gave me the offer to serve as her CFO and director of sales, which I currently still do. And in this process of selling metabolically healthy chocolate, I realized very quickly for customers to feel total confidence in what they're buying, they need clarity, and clarity is driven through conversation. But then I started thinking about our own sales funnel, and I was like, hold up, 99% of our sales as a company is happening through our online storefront. So how do we emulate this experience of a conversation with the brand owner or the company itself as a customer online? And that's why, I was super pleased and excited to create that technology, which is how and why I'm building Hey Buddy, which acts as a virtual shopkeeper. So every step of the way, he'll be there on your screen where you can ask an endless number of questions. And I know even in person, I'm a very chatty person, but even still, there's almost like a limit to the number of questions you can ask a person in real time, right? You can't just sit there and like imagine like you walked into a store and you're just standing there for 20 minutes asking like, all right, well, who's the founder? Or where's this source from? Or tell me about every single one of your products I want to know about. And so understanding this need in my business led me to start asking other, CPG brands like, hey guys, like how are you guys, experiencing this? How do you guys drive that clarity and confidence through conversation? And quickly realize like with the changing landscape, i.e., consumers needing instant responses before they, for example, hop to another website and buy the exact same product, we can keep them and retain them and keep them especially loyal to the brand by providing that clarity. And so that's kind of the why behind Hey Buddy and why I'm so hyped and passionate about transforming how we shop online as consumers.
Wow, that was eloquently said, by the way. I absolutely love that. I took some notes too because thinking as as a person who had a business in that with online store, like an online store, it was harder, like getting people to purchase online versus like when we did our on like in-person pop-ups or featured in different places. And so I think this is a huge opportunity for people to find that same kind of experience online. So I'd love to dive into kind of like where you're at with your business now, with in terms of your staff and kind of where that's looking. So how many are you the sole owner? First of all, that's my
No,
first question.
I'm the co-founder. I run and own the business with my best friend Christopher Gale. And as far as like where we're at, we kind of are like getting out of beta testing. We recently signed on our first paying customer. And so super excited. We're like on that upward trajectory. Recently hired some interns on the product team and the sales team, and we're rapidly expanding. So if you're a person who's interested in what we're working on and you want to join the team, reach out to me, would love to. But yeah, we're rapidly growing and very optimistic of the future ahead of us.
Oh, definitely. So, how are you sharing about like how are you doing your marketing? You mentioned you brought on some interns. So, what are some of the things you're doing right now to get the word out?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like every other startup company, doing the LinkedIn, doing the Instagram, and I think one of the biggest things, especially early stage founders who are in my position, really need to focus on is instead of, I mean, again, sales, revenue generation, these are super important, but I believe the correlation to creating such a thing is through relationship building. And so, doing things and like what you and I did when we met, which is being part of the actual startup ecosystem, the community, showing up to events and building those relationships is another thing that I, as the founder, am doing. And so, super excited to do all that. And of course, other things like email marketing as well.
Oh, nice. Okay, you do have a mailer. Um, yeah, I agree. Going to those in-person things are huge, and just like finding those connections and like that, the nothing beats a handshake, or especially here in the Austin area, I feel like it, or in the Texas area. So I love that. And so let's dive in a bit deeper on that. So once you get those, like you meet people at these events, how are you continuing to foster the relationships? Are you using a CRM, or how are you staying in contact with them?
Yeah, so surely, like, I always recommend people to have a CRM if you don't have it already. It helps to systematize it. Of course, HubSpot is industry standard. If anybody's looking for another recommendation or alternative, ClickUp is pretty cool. They've been working really hard to go, head to head with the big dogs in the space. But aside from the technical kind of allocation of data and information, I think something that people often go into relationship building wrong is the idea of how they can derive value. Like even when we think about people who are strategic about showing up to these events, these are individuals who are like, okay, I'm going to try to get the guest list. I'm going to figure out like who to talk to and what I can get from them. And my personal philosophy is like, that's great and you should do all the things. I'm not knocking that. However, I kind of see it oppositely, right? It's asking the question of like, how can I serve these people? And Hormozy talks about this idea, but it's like provide a bunch of free value, right? Instead of just hoping that this person trusts you, show them exactly why, show and bring them that value to what they're working on, what their ecosystem is doing. And I think from there you foster relationships in a more organic fashion. And I think especially if like you're an early stage starter, those first 30 to 100 customers, you want them to be evangelists. You want them to be loyalists. You want them to be beating their chest and saying like, no, 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 guys, listen, like you got to do business with them and you can trust them and they deliver at the highest level. And so that's one of the things I really do prioritize is to give before asking. And I think when you give, and then finally there's an ask at the end, it's a no-brainer for them.
Yeah. So what kind of things are you giving right now, or how does that work? Like if I was, say, interested in, hey buddy, say I'm selling my t-shirts, how are you providing that? Like I'm very curious.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I think in the age of information, it's how can I proliferate information on that company? So as a business, if we decide to partner up, you're going to be put on our website as one of our strategic partners. In our resource page, your business will be listed as a resource. In our mailing list, we'll talk, about that. I think another great thing is, and then you guys do this well with y'all's operations, is like actually publicizing and using your platform to bring the light to other founders. And then as far as other things, we mentioned relationship building, we mentioned community, some simple things like, hey, like if you're a CPG brand and you're going to go, have a table and be a vendor at an event, like invite those people over too. If you've got a list of, 10 to 100 founders you want to foster relationships with, every networking event you go to, like tell them, every platform you get that there's an opportunity, bring them in on it. I think we often like find the spirit of like resource guarding, and I believe in the opposite, like bring everyone in it and then give them the same opportunities that you're experiencing. And it goes a long way. Even small things like, hey, look at this market insight and text them a memo. Like I saw that, for example, for our chocolate company, cacao prices are going up, right? And supply chain is getting hit with the tariff situation. Okay,
Hmm.
that forces us as a company to look elsewhere to other logistics companies and to look at potentially new farms where the distribution and lines of getting to us is going to be easier. We're not the only chocolate company in the world. We're not the only company that's doing international logistics. So give that to your founders. Like, hey guys, like we ran into this problem. This is how we solved it. Don't look anywhere else for your logistics. Go with and then insert company X. So just doing things like that with a true spirit and being a team player on the team that they have going, or being part of their mission, I believe goes such a long way.
Oh, I agree with you. I could definitely see that. Now, what are some of the results you've been seeing with doing that? Like, are you like take an example of what you're doing, like the texting? Like, what's something you're getting back from that you're noticing?
Yeah, for me, it's interesting because it's almost like the result of me, let's say like an action of generosity is like a one. What I've been seeing in real time is like a 1 to 3. It's like an exponential return on investment. It's so interesting to think about generosity and hospitality this way, but I've just been seeing the people that I serve and build community with, they have this affinity towards feeling like, oh, I want to bring them in on everything. And it's like reciprocated beyond, my imagination. And so what does that actually translate to? That means I'm meeting people that I otherwise wouldn't have, fostering relationships with them that wouldn't have happened otherwise, being able to show up to events that I didn't even know about, and just being in places that otherwise would have been, out of my comprehension. And so that all builds so much, and it just expedites the process of our journey as a company and me as an entrepreneur. And so that's been really awesome and really great.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing about, how your like company's growing. I'd like to hear about what you've got planned for the future. So looking at the next 3 to 5 years in business, where do you see the company going?
Yeah, fantastic question. And I love thinking about it because to me it's like this empire building game is how I view entrepreneurship. And so with Hey Buddy specifically, I see our company growing in 3 phases over the next 3 to 5 years. So phase one is we need to ensure that we are a virtual shopkeeper, or in other words, a chatbot that performs at the highest level of efficacy, and we do the things that we state. For example, aside from, and this is kind of a question of how we differentiate ourselves versus the other quote unquote chatbots that are out there. We not only exist to serve the customer, right? Most chatbot companies are focused on, hop on the website and it can answer questions. Well, first and foremost, we want to build one and that's what we're doing currently, is that's truly agentic and conversational, that can answer any question on the brand. But in addition to that is providing founders real-time analytics on the conversations that they have. And using this critical information, they can shape their sales, advertising, and marketing approaches. And you probably know this better than anyone with the t-shirt company. It's like figuring out how to communicate to your ideal customer, your target audience. And a lot of times, early entrepreneurs, they throw money and burn it, just experimenting, which is not a bad thing. But imagine if you could have real-time insight on the most critical questions and things that your customers want. So that's phase one. Phase two is we start showing up on the actual product packaging. So I don't know if you've used the app Yuka before, where you scan it and it kind of gives you a score and like shows you like ingredients in there that are bad or good or whatever. The next phase I see is actually embedding our technology on the physical product itself. So when you walk into your Whole Foods or your Central Market or your Trader Joe's, you scan the back of it and Buddy pops up on your iPhone and you can ask him questions. Like, for example, if you're shopping for our chocolate, you could say, I'm pre-diabetic. Should I eat this? Should I buy this? And it'll tell you absolutely. It contains zero or, X number of grams of sugar, contains these ingredients. And so it's an actual immersive physical experience. We take this online technology, we bring it to the physical, tangible world. So that's the second phase. And then the third phase of the company is, I imagine we've signed on, again, this is 3 to 5 years. We've signed on thousands of CPG brands, and what we become is the one-stop shop where you jump on, www.joinheybuddy.ai, and you go, hey buddy, I'm shopping for insert product that you're looking for, and then, attributes and qualities, and then it pops up, and it's its own marketplace and ecosystem where people go to get real-time information. And then again, I place a huge emphasis on conversation and community. Currently, when you're shopping for something, and I don't know if you do this, but this is what I do. I go to Reddit, I go to Twitter, and I see what everyone else is saying about the product. And so you would be able to see actual real-time, like community commentary on these products and services and buy them directly through Hey Buddy. So we'd be the one-stop shop for all things CPG. And so that's the three phases of the brand. I'm super excited for what we're going to do as a company, and I can't wait to get there.
Wow, I love the clarity that you brought. Like that plan is very, I love the clarity there. And I think that's amazing to have that, especially moving forward. And so thank you for sharing about your plan. And I think that's like honestly a golden nugget of this conversation was just like how you've broken that into the phases that you did. I think that's huge for, other listeners, like to like break it into phases, break it into like, this is the season we're going to be in, and this is how we're going to get there. So thank you.
Absolutely. And it does go a long way to have that clarity because even when you think about the feeling of being in the company, okay, when we're at this season, it's gonna feel this way, and these are the things that we gotta focus on. And there's no like scope creep. Like okay, if this doesn't align with the vision right now, let's, either hold off for later or think about it differently. So absolutely, I'm glad to share that.
Yes. Well, now I kind of want to dive into another thing that a lot of business owners, or all business owners at one point or another, are faced with is the challenges that come along on this journey. And so, what is something you're currently challenged with either it could be getting started, next phases, like what's something that's been on your mind?
Yeah. Well, I'll answer this in two ways. So one, of course, I think the starting problem was scary. Prior to starting Hey Buddy and kind of just making the leap, I was working at an awesome firm. I was doing my dream job. It was supporting entrepreneurs and raising venture capital and building investor grade financial models. Like I loved doing it. There was a consistent salary, like there was a clear path of career progression and trajectory. And to have that level of stability and and honestly, a great, like, because I like to think of my life in like a simulation, and I'm like, that simulation was pretty good. Like that parallel universe, I would have been happy and it would have been awesome. And uh, why even do it? And I think to make that leap of faith was a challenge. It required a lot of courage and for me to be bold and just say, you know what, like, screw it, like let's ride and let's see what happens. And then on the secondary idea that I have for us today is I truly believe like if you're an individual who has a dream, for example, for me, it's empowering the success of other entrepreneurs and ensuring that these prolific minds have the infrastructure and technology to basically conquer whatever it is that comes from the spirit. Like that is a deeply spiritual desire that comes from the heart. And I view entrepreneurship as this deeply spiritual game. And I believe that, these are downloads from the Most High. And so the challenge here is fighting off and being strong in the spiritual battle. Because the way that it shows up is you might be a founder who's on the precipice of changing humanity in the course of the way that society functions. And you might be hit with, for example, the anxious feelings of, will this even work? Like, is this going to happen? You might be struggling from the experience of burnout or fatigue because you're putting in so much, like your spirit, your mind is so intertwined with the mission. And so it's warding off, what I like to think of as agents of evil, whether that comes in the form of bad mental models or thoughts or even just people, and remaining positive no matter what your experience is, whether that's with an investor or a customer or even a coworker. So it's being able to stay strong in the spiritual game and staying connected, staying grounded to your vision, your mission, and your purpose. And so those are kind of the two immediate challenges that I've been, faced with and really just meditating on.
Can you give me an example of that? Like something tangible? How, especially like, okay, staying connected to the mission and like, especially staying true to um the truth of the business and not listening to like the other voices out there, the other like whatever's being thrown at you. But yeah, can you give me something tangible that you've experienced recently?
Sure. So I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, and it's always like I always ask them like, okay, it's like talk to me about your dreams, right? Like tell me what do you like dream of? If like we could throw out every other factor in the world, what would you do? Okay, and they tell me this beautiful business idea and this plan, and I ask them, okay, well, what's stopping you from doing it? And they're like, but dude, like I need to have X number of dollars in my bank account, right? Or I need to be making X whatever. And it's really interesting because we are physical beings. And I want to apply just a framework here. Let's like reference Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the very bottom, it is those physiological needs. You need a house, you need to be able to eat, things like that. And another thing is like let's not even think from a place of survivorship. Let's think of like from a place of abundance. A lot of people are incentivized by money. Like they really want money, they want to earn. And so in this game of entrepreneurship, I believe you have your spirit when we think about actually tangibly, being focused on the mission. It's not letting the desire of money or wealth or monetary success be your driver. Instead, it's because odds are there will be in that first, especially 1 to 2 years, a little bit of struggle there. Maybe you might have problems with revenue generation or whatever it is, and it's not giving that too much control and power. So for the young entrepreneur like me, it's like as long as your bases are covered, you've got a place to sleep, you've got food, you don't worry about the rest. Like money will come. And so that's like a big starting problem for a lot of people is they're like, I want to get to X number before. And I think there should be some balance of that, but that's like a tangible way where you can stay rooted in the focus because your reward is not the money that comes in your bank account. The reward is serving your customer and being part of that, whatever idea it is. So for me in Sinless Treats Chocolate, it's about creating a more metabolically healthy future. And so my inspiration, my influence isn't the money I'm making for the company. It's are we really helping the world? Are we actually changing it? And that should be the driving force. So that's like my way of tangibly placing it and grounding that idea.
And how, well, thank you for sharing that. And how have you done that with, like, let's use your client, like with the chocolate company.
Mhm.
How are you doing that? And is there anything that you're like when you're living out these concepts and these ideas, are there any roadblocks that you've had within the company, within what you're building, that you've had to overcome or are being challenged with right now?
Yeah, so the way that I think about it again is it's like it's this mental idea of like we as human beings, especially in this day and age of social media, we want like instant results and we want instant gratification and we want our end state to be, especially hyper ambitious individuals. They're like, like for example, if you ask me like, when do you want the bag? I'll tell you yesterday, right? And so the way that I think about that instead is this, it's staying rooted in logic, right? And not allowing emotion to bubble up. So if you're listening and you're an early stage founder and you're like betting everything on your company, well, instead of being worried about, financial success within it, I want to provide a framework, which is this. If you love what you do and you love the person or the people you're trying to solve problems for, you'll naturally put in a great solution into the world. And under the assumption that we have a efficient free market, by providing value to society and the free market, the natural response will be that monetary compensation that you desire and want. And so, as far as the challenges of being an early stage founder, you're placing a huge bet financially on the mission and what you're working on. And so that is a roadblock because, for example, Chris, he's a crack software engineer. He could be making 250K a year. Like, but yet he's walking away from that because he's married to the mission, married to the concept, and we are not being driven as founders of this business by the desire of money today, but rather building a more prosperous future that will naturally be rewarded for doing. I hope
Mm.
that's helpful.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. That is exactly what I was looking for. Is like, what's like, how's that affecting y'all right now, especially in startup mode? And those, that is where it's like you're kind of you're jumping, you're
Yeah.
making the leap. So, thank you for sharing that. This has been such an inspiring conversation so far, and I'd love to dive into it's called rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
I'm going to be asking you 4 questions, and you answer very top of mind.
Okay. Let's do
Uh,
it.
all right. Question number 1 is what is a key to success for you?
sheer love. I mean, as like cliche as it sounds, it's like you have to love it to do it because it is almost illogical. Like if survivorship is truly the mission, then why engage in an activity where what's like 70 to 90% of startup companies fail? It has to be love for the journey. And so that has been my success is love is not just a discipline or a choice. It is this force, this energy. And the source of success is because when I talk to you, if you're my customer, if I talk to you and you're my coworker, you get to experience the embodiment of that love. And so by possessing that energy, it's allowed me to propel myself and to propel my businesses and to propel the things I'm working on. And not just that, but to be this kind of like magnet for people because people want to be around leaders that inspire them and empower them and keep them at front of mind. And so just love and being a great human that wants to give people the best, it's infectious and opportunities get attracted and gravitate in that, modality of being. So that's been really cool for me.
That's beautiful. That's very true. Number two is, what is a piece of advice you have for other business owners?
A lot of business owners, myself included, we have this mental idea, and it's actually probably a reason for hyper success is this individual agency where we believe like I have to do everything. I think my advice for business owners is this: is instead of trying to be everything, have everything around you through the form of the people that you have. So, for example, right, there are a lot of things as entrepreneurs that we need to know. We need to know marketing. We need to know the sales. We need to be able to know product. We need to be able to know consumer behavior and what people are doing and thinking. But we're also just like one individual human. And so I believe, identify the things that you're super good at, right? And let me use Chris and I, our kind of dynamic as an example. I love people. I love communicating. I like being out there. I like proliferating ideas. I'm a visionary. I love or like that's my forte. Now, Chris, on the other hand, he loves to build. He loves to just take his mind and just like build super cool technological solutions. And so instead of me trying to sit there as a finance guy who understands business operations and sales, to go sit there and try to learn computer science and go compete with the best CS people, I have my co-founder who's one of the best, software engineers that I know, and he specializes in that part, and we share a mind together that works, you know, very efficiently. And so again, to kind of wrap this idea up, it's the business owners of like you don't need to be everything all at once, but just make sure that everything all at once exists within the organization via the team and especially your co-founder.
That's so true. Kind of like staying in like your scope of genius. And
Yes.
yeah, that's huge.
Yes.
Question number three is, what is, it could be like a book, a podcast, an article, just something that resonated with you recently.
It's very interesting. I picked up, I was in Costco the other day just randomly, and I picked up a book called On Power. It's by, I believe, the author's name is Mark Levin, and he talks about this idea of how even virtues, even our most prolific ideas, need some sort of oppository or opposing idea. So, for example, if you are a person that, or a society where the core value was individual sovereignty, to its most extreme, that's anarchy, right? And so there needs to be a counterbalance. And so in business, it's what this translated to me as a founder was stay level-headed, right? Like no matter what the idea is, or let's say, for example, product, you have a vision for your product. If you are so focused on building it the exact way that your brain is thinking about it, you will then fail to listen to the customer, listen to where markets are going, and not be agile. And I think the beauty of startups versus corporations is that is our forte. We can be agile. We can modify the product. We can come out with a new version and constantly be in touch with the change. And so that's the book I've been reading. It talks about it more in a philosophical government structure, but I've been taking it as like a, whoa, this is super interesting. So every idea needs a counterbalance. And again, that's also presented in my co-founding team structure, right? You have your explosive, loud person, and then you have your grounded human, and together that oppository, it's kind of a yin and yang. So that's kind of the book I've been reading and my takeaway from it.
Nice, thank you. I wrote that down. That sounds like a great book. And it is really, there is always that, yeah, the ebb and flow of the power. dynamic and like masculine, feminine, or
Absolutely. Yeah.
dark versus light. Yeah, there's like yeah, that's a whole nother conversation we could get into. Um, but the final question is, if you could wave a magic wand and rapidly improve one aspect of your business, what would it be?
I would say people. If I could like have the Avengers of the startup world and like, for example, if I searched up online like top 10 startup founders and get all of us together, that would be awesome. Because, of course, processes need improvement. Of course, we need new sales and stuff like that. But I believe the hardest thing for any business to master on is finding the right people, having the most genius individuals in the world who are all super laser focused on one vision, one mission. And I also believe, just as a CEO, like talent acquisition and retention is a huge underspoken problem and challenge. And if I could, magic wand, I would have all the great entrepreneurs all in one organization and then work together on the mission. So definitely, that, and just being like, if I could, magic wand myself, being like a really great, because I think especially at the pre-seed level, the best VCs are people that can look at a person and understand their innermost psyche and take a bet on that person. And so if I can magic wand it, I would have that ability to the highest level and be like, you, yep, you. And that's just a skill I'm gonna have to build over time. But that would be it for the whole organization as a whole.
Oh, that's a huge one. Talent recruiting is yeah, that's a big one. That's a good one. So I'm really glad you said that. Again, this has been such a great conversation. Absolutely, Andrew. Love talking to you. Before we get to our final question of the day, how can folks get connected with you and your company online?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, search us up at joinheybuddy.ai, schedule a demo, learn more. And then the other thing is I love meeting people. So if you're a random stranger you're not even in Texas, you're not even in the startup ecosystem, but you happen to listen to this podcast, I would love to meet you, spend time with you and understand your mission, your vision, and kind of what you dream about. Because I love new friends, and I think the beauty of life is the people in it. So get connected with me on LinkedIn, search me up, Andrew Abraham. Would love to chat and grab, 15 to 30 minutes and just get to know one another.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, for our final question today. What is most inspiring to you today?
I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, just like everyone else, I've been using AI a lot, especially as an AI tech founder. And I've been thinking about how, like, because I'm almost getting to a point where I'm like, man, like, how did people do this before? Because, for example, like, if we're planning out ideas for LinkedIn, like marketing, you can ask it and it'll give you like a whole 30-day roadmap and you build according to that and you add your human essence. So, what did this thought actually lead me to think about? Today, like when we think about like humanity on a timeline, today we can literally generate and basically test ideas quicker than ever before. And so what's the most inspiring to me is we quite literally at our fingertips have every tool, every resource, every piece of information you could ever possibly want. And so what's inspiring to me is there has never been, arguably, never been a better time in human history to try something new, to be a
Mm.
startup founder, to try to go out there and do what people consider as bold or, off the off-beaten path. And so that's inspiring to me today that not only do you just need courage and boldness to jump into it, but like the whole arsenal of machinery that once didn't exist to help you grow, scale, and launch a company rapidly exists today. So that inspires me to know and to just feel blessed that I was born today, to be born into society, to have all of the abilities that we have through AI and machine learning.
Wow, well, that is inspiring. You fueled me up for the morning. So, again, thank you so much, Andrew, for just being on the show, sharing your knowledge, and I wish you the best of luck in your business journey.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor and pleasure. And I love what you guys are doing and how you guys inspire entrepreneurs across the world. So blessings to you and to all the listeners.
Thank you.